in New York, knowing two things. Number one is Cleveland rocks, but we're still trying to figure out why. And the second thing is that if you want a place that you can afford to live, and I tell this to people all the time, move to Cleveland.
Yeah.
So I am curious about your journey of.
We'll put the hotels, in the first in a second.
Yeah. Our ADD is kicking in.
None of your business, Ushi. None of your business, Michael.
It's the None of Your Business podcast, hosted by Michael and Ushi.
Welcome back, everybody, to another revealing episode of the None of Your Business podcast. I'm your host, Michael Greenfield. Joined with me is my co-host, Ushi Schwartz. And we are produced by the Prime Source team. Thank you for everyone behind the scenes. Thank you for liking, subscribing, commenting, and getting involved. Guys, I have a new thing that I'd like to start with today. And that is ChatGPT said what? So in order to introduce our next guest, I'm not going to just introduce Aaron Lichtenstein. I'm actually going to tell you, Aaron, what ChatGPT has to say about you.
Okay.
That way you get to know what the world thinks, and the world gets to learn a little bit about you.
There is another Aaron Lichtenstein out there. He's like the Rosh Yeshiva of Gush, of all these, big yeshivas. So let's see what they said about me.
That's not you?
That's not me, no. But let's see what they came back.
Related to you?
No, I get it all the time.
People ever confuse you with it?
I've gotten business in the modern Orthodox world because he is their big Rosh Yeshiva. He was Nifter a few years ago, and he's like the guy that everyone asks me, are you related to him? But let's see what ChatGPT came back.
Okay, Aaron.
Okay.
Aaron's booth pulls more nurses than morning rounds. If you're looking for the crowd, just follow the buzz and probably the snacks. Okay, that's number one. So I guess you're a big trade show guy.
I do go to a lot of trade shows.
How many trade shows would you say?
Now it's down to 3 or 4 a year, but then you have the big the ECAPs and LTC 100s that you go to, and not a trade show booth. But I'm a big believer of people having booths at trade shows. When people say I'm just going to work the floor, I think you gotta have a booth sometimes.
Okay,
I think
we'll get to that. I hear what you're saying, but you can't afford to have a booth at everything, so sometimes people like to just go to places. Used to be an accountant, so yes, your ROI pitch better add up or he'll find the decimal you missed. GPT, schwach. You left Brooklyn for Cleveland and actually brags about it.
Oh, gosh.
Okay. You're a low-key LinkedIn hotel reviewer. If he stays there, you'll hear about it. Okay. And then finally, you turn negative pressure wound therapy into positive energy, making it sound sexy.
Okay.
This is ChatGPT's version of you. It's not mine. What do you think?
Not bad.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Accurate?
Not the accounting part, but other than that, pretty good.
You were an accountant?
I was an accountant. I worked, I got married in 2010, and the economy wasn't doing too well. And for some reason, my parents said, you should go to college. So I went to, actually down the street from here, I went to the PCS accounting program. And somehow I ended up at Deloitte, and then I went to work at Ernst & Young. I was in the real estate tax group. And I worked there. I did decent, not that great. I worked under this partner. His name is Saul Crone, who was excellent to me, treated me really well. And somehow, after being there for a bunch of years, I decided, you know what? I want to leave accounting. It's not for me. So I started going to recruiting firms, and they said, you're an accountant. You got to stay in accounting. And they said, why don't you come work for us? So I became a recruiter for a year. It's the hardest job, placing people, because people are crazy. It's their whole life is their job. And then from there, my family's business in the negative pressure wound therapy business in nursing homes started to expand, and I joined the business 9 years ago, around this time of year, 9 years ago. Funny story about working as an accountant. He used to make a joke, this partner, and he used to say that you're like an average quarterback. He said, you might win a playoff game if you have a good team around you, but you're never gonna win a Super Bowl. So if you have all the right receivers, he was a big sports analogy guy. He was very good to me. If you have the good staff underneath you and good supporting team, you'll do okay. But I'll tell you one thing, the pressure you're under when you work in the Big Four is unbelievable. And today I don't get stressed when I'm working on something because the deadlines and the amount of work that you have to do and the hours you have to put in and the amount of preparation and looking things over is so hard and so much that you really have to be it kind of trains you for today. And there are things that I learned there, like my Excel skills and anything I do it didn't waste any time there. It's not transitions completely, but into sales, but something that really, I think really helped me.
I have a lot of friends that are in that world of Deloitte or top four, you said?
Big Four, yeah.
What are the Big Four?
Ernst & Young.
Ernst & Young.
KPMG. Deloitte, PwC.
Oh, PwC. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Those are the top 4 accounting firms. Right?
Correct.
So whenever you meet someone in, and he says, "Oh, I'm an accountant. I work for the Big Four."
Big Four.
He means one of those.
One of those.
But the trajectory of that industry is usually to become a partner, make a lot of money, and this is the reason people go into it.
Or they go private and become a CFO of a hedge fund or a private equity fund, real estate fund.
So that's the world of finance. I'm always
Correct.
curious about these things because of careers for people. I always like to know.
Yeah, so
this is a career that people can go into if they like accounting, but you're saying it's very, very...
I was in real estate tax, so I was just working on real estate funds doing their K1s, basically taking taxable income and then kind of taking their income and turning it into taxable income for these big partnerships. It wasn't like I was doing personal tax returns or people's tax returns. They were investors, institutional investors, and basically we would give them their K1s and show them what their taxable income was.
I'm already bored. So you're saying you're bored and you were stressed.
And today with AI and offices overseas, I promise you it's not so complicated, you know.
But you're saying, it was still a lot of pressure.
Still a lot of pressure, a lot of deadlines, a lot of changes. Yes, a lot of deadlines, tight crunch times, late nights, a lot of ordering and food and stuff.
Okay, so you went from potentially being a partner in an accounting to doing LinkedIn reviews on hotels successfully without stress, obviously.
Right,
How'd
exactly.
that happen?
Well, what happened was when I was doing this recruiting thing, I didn't like it, and the business, started to pick up. My father's business. Now, my father started this business in 2005. He worked at Tri-State Surgical for 20 years. He was at a trade show one time, the Met Trade Show, which I'm sure you've heard of, and they had this thing called the negative pressure machine. Now, at that time, there's only one company that did it. It was called KCI. It's owned by 3M today. And he saw that this company, Blue Sky, decided to come out with this wound vac. What a wound vac is, it does negative pressure suction therapy to wounds that are very nasty, okay? And he went to his boss and he said, hey, we can do this thing for a lot cheaper. He says, we're not in the rental business. We do medical supplies, DME. We don't do this thing. So he decided that he's going to start doing this thing on his own. So
went to his boss, had an idea.
Had an idea.
Said, no, he said, I'm going to do it on my own.
It took him some time, and he started taking these things. They looked like a KitchenAid back then. They weren't, wound vac today looks like a tissue box. It's the size of a tissue box. It's a machine, size of a tissue box, and he kind of started going around and bring them out of the back of his Toyota Camry, like a 1999 Toyota Camry, and bring them into the facilities and say, hey, you need a wound vac? I have it. $65 a day. You're paying $180 with this other company. And he made a cheshbon that if I have 15 machines out, I'm making enough money that I was making at that job.
And for those that don't know, when you get a wound, someone gets a wound, diabetic wound or a
post-surgical wound, amputation wound.
Sure, and then there's different stages of wounds that happen on a person's body, right?
Correct.
Stage 1, 2, 3, and 4.
This is 3 and 4 usually.
Right, so you can treat it with some bandages and some creams, but if it gets too deep and too difficult to treat, then you need to do a wound vac, sort of like a vacuum.
But it sucks very, 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 very little on the wound. And what it does is it brings, it's a bandage with a tube going into the machine. And what it does is it brings oxygen and blood from the rest of the body to the wound, and it promotes healing. Similarly, you ever watch Michael Phelps swim? He has those red circles on the back. That's suction cupping therapy. What it's doing is it's bringing, it's not an open wound, but they kind of suck out all the air of this. It's called a bronchus, actually. That's what they used to call it back in Europe when people would get sick. Suction therapy on the wound, on the body, and it promotes, his muscle care and stuff. You ever heard of suction cupping therapy or anything like that?
It's very popular in sports.
Very popular.
Yeah, you see a lot of athletes on the court, and they have these round red circles on their body, and it's become very popular among athletes to do the suction. What's it called?
Cupping or suction.
Cupping.
I'm curious, Aaron, if
that's
you know
what
about
Matzitza
this.
is actually by a bris. Honestly, it's bringing blood.
Whoa, what?
Yeah, I'm telling you, that's what it is. That when they do, that's what it is. It promotes healing. It's bringing blood to the actual wound to make sure it heals better. It's not just a ritual. There's a thing to it.
I almost don't want to describe what Matzitza is.
But I'm just, we don't have to. Okay,
move
sorry.
on from this, but that's fascinating.
Yeah, not a topic that will be well received.
But I'm just saying,
so
You're saying when you're cutting the baby's little schmeckle and you're circumcising and it's bleeding,
right?
So you want to suck the blood to the point of the wound so that it heals properly.
Correct.
And therefore people do it, and we recommend that they don't do it by mouth, and they use a device which has been out there for over a decade.
This is the halachic portion of the...
Okay.
Yeah.
That's just the part that I'm always fascinated by when I go to a bris or something and everyone's watching. What do you watch? What are you trying to learn? So I guess maybe there's some wound doctors there watching. You ever see little children watching? It's like I always try to push them away. I don't think it's meant for them. But I'm curious about that the wound world because Ushi and I have been on a journey for the past few weeks learning about placenta and the idea of membranes and taking it to heal wounds in a way that no one else can heal it. Do you know about this world?
It's becoming the new cash advance type business. Now, Mendy Warsh, the way he explained cash advance, it was unbelievable. I enjoyed that part on your podcast. It's like the new ABA is that for somehow the insurance companies, when they do a placenta change, they're going to give thousands of dollars.
What is it? Can you explain what that is? Do you
It's
know
basically an
more about
artificial skin that they're basically, after many treatments of trying to heal a wound, and there's documentation for 6 weeks or 4 weeks, I don't know the exact numbers, you're allowed to order one of these pieces, and the reimbursement is ridiculously high on that.
But it helps heal the wound.
It helps heal the wound, yes.
Officially. Right.
Yes,
right.
that's like the new thing. And people are, if it really works or it doesn't work, but right now the insurance companies are paying a lot of money for that thing.
Right.
And we're not in that
There's
world.
an artificial skin that you're putting.
That's what it is. It's like a skin graft,
to
really.
heal a very high level wound. That's what it is.
It's tissue from the placenta, I believe.
What is that about? From the placenta? They're saving it and they're selling it and they're creating a skin graft out of it. It's fascinating stuff. Right.
And apparently this has been around for a while. That's not new technology.
Right.
But it just hasn't been as exposed as it is right now. And the Medicare reimbursement for it is ridiculously high. It's in the thousands of dollars
per square inch.
Per square inch.
Yeah.
So you can have, a 4x4 area that, could potentially be $15,000, $20,000 just to tend to that little area, that wound.
I get people reach out to me on LinkedIn saying they just got into this. I see there's people that, let's do a JV together. Voice notes are coming in.
It's like a gold rush.
They don't
right
even
now.
know what I do. They just see wound care on LinkedIn. They think wound care is one thing. The wound care industry is a billions of dollar industry. There's so many aspects of wound care. You have the Gentel people, you have the Healing Partners people, all those companies that do wound care. I'm in one specific area of wound care, but when someone just jumps into this business, they think that,
Yeah, wounds are a very serious topic. Very serious topic because when somebody is bedridden and somebody is not getting enough movement in their body, and if they're in a coma, if they're immobile, whatever it might be, and they start getting ulcers, pressure ulcers, and they start getting these very severe wounds, what's going to happen is it's also going to delay your rehabilitation because it becomes very uncomfortable and you can't do therapy properly. So it overtakes your entire treatment. If you have a wound that wasn't managed properly along the way, it becomes very difficult to ever recover, to ever really recuperate. And it's something you could contend with for a very long time. It's one of the major issues that we have in our hospital systems today.
Correct.
Is that they're not moving people around enough. They're not getting enough blood flow into the body, different pressure points into the body. And, if you don't have a good wound care treatment plan, then it can derail your entire recovery process for the rest of your life, potentially. Yeah. And you'll always have to contend with that wound that you had. And if not healing, it gets worse and it gets worse. And it's very uncomfortable. It's very painful. It's a really, really big area of concern. And I think wound care companies are a very big integral part of what goes on in a skilled nursing facility, in that environment where you have older people, their skin breaks down a lot faster. It's much more sensitive. And I think what you're doing, your company, is really helping promote the healing. And the technology that you have behind your devices, from what I understand, heals in about 15 to 20 days.
It all depends on if the patients, how healthy they are also. Some patients are healthier than others. They heal faster.
Yeah.
Just like
what makes your device from Wound Healing Technology? By the way, we didn't touch on his company yet.
Right.
I think we should talk about WHT, Wound Healing Technology. Yeah. They've been around now for 20 years. 20 years or so,
He started, we started.
You guys have very big market share. You're in a lot of nursing homes across the country. Is nursing homes the only market that you're...
Now, we started manufacturing our own products, the last 3 years. So besides for that, we're starting to sell to other DME companies. So if you have a DME company in Florida that services maybe 50 homes, we'll sell them the devices and the supplies to them also.
Like a wholesale model.
Like a wholesale model, because we manufacture it also.
You know what, Aaron, as a thank you for coming down to our podcast today. This podcast is going to be sponsored by Wound Healing Technology.
Well, thank you for that.
And if you want to learn more about them, contact the Prime Source Expense Advisor today and ask us how we can help heal the wounds in your facility.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's good.
You mentioned earlier about KCI.
I'll tell you, when we say our company, at the end of the day, you want to say KCI. So look at KCI as like they're their Mercedes-Benz, the industry standard, in a car, or BMW for that matter, something that is the ultimate driving machine. Let's just say that. But then you have other cars that want to copy BMW. They'll come out with a new feature, but then every other industry is going to copy them also. But at the same time, your car is going to drive well, and a Genesis is going to drive also well. It might not be the leader in the thing, but negative pressure suction therapy does work. Now, where the difference is between what we do and other companies is that we invest a lot of education. And you were saying is that a really, the healing should be 15 to 20 days to heal a wound, is that our clinical team, what they'll do is they'll train the facilities. And this is where we took off from being a small company to being in 1,800 facilities, is that our nurses train the people in the facilities on how to use the device. And if you know what you're doing with a wound vac versus not knowing what you're doing, it could be double the amount of time. So when people say to me, hey, your price is a little more, I can get a little cheaper, I said, our company specializes in this area. We'll teach your nurses how to do it. Everybody wants education.
Yes.
That is what I'm seeing is you see these people have courses, they have courses and they're making millions of dollars. I don't know, whatever courses they're doing. You offer education, you train.
100%. I used to be...
You guys invest a lot in training also.
Yeah, we're big believers in education.
Very big. I come from that world. One of the companies I used to work for, a very large, possibly the largest medical supply disposable company. And they always used to preach. They always used to say this. At Nordstrom, they would say this. And it's true. It really, really was, it really came to fruition, is that there are many people selling medical supplies. Everybody can ship you a box. Everybody can sell you a product. And you know what? The products are all very similar, within range of each other. Nobody's product is that much better than the next person's product. But where you differentiate yourself is how you train people to use those products. The application of the products is really the key. That's the driver if you're going to get the outcomes that you desire. And if you don't provide that training, if you don't teach people how to properly use it, the functionality of the product, that's going to change the game. So it sounds like you guys are taking that very seriously in the educational department. And I think that if you really are excelling at that, people appreciate it and people want it. People welcome getting the education on a consistent basis and the re-education, making sure that that's always available. And it sounds like that's very important for you guys.
Yeah, knowledge, when you teach someone, is knowledge is selling. You know, today's salespeople are very different than the classic used salesperson, car salesperson, out there. I think today people can ChatGPT anything. Like you just found that information about me, but like people could do their own research, right? So the salesperson that used to just say, this is the best, this is the price, this, that, and the other. Today, the quiet salespeople are the ones that are killing it. The ones that kind of educate and listen and understand the needs that people have today. I think those are like the future of the salespeople because anyone can look up anything.
Speaking of knowledge, by the way, I just want you guys to know, I was around when KCI started, and the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I sat on a plane once with a guy, and it's kind of a funny story, so I'll just share it with you real quick. But I was the only time that I actually was scared on an airplane is when I was on a JetBlue flight, and the wheel wasn't opening up properly, and we watched ourselves on television.
I saw you were on that flight.
Yeah,
I happen to be a big aviation, like it's like a hobby of mine. But like that JetBlue flight, with the sparks coming out of the front. You were on. Where were you coming from?
It was Buffalo, I believe, or something like that.
How long ago was this?
Over a decade.
Over a decade ago. It's a famous video. Probably millions.
I'm sitting next to a guy, and he's a Jewish guy, and we're kibitzing the whole time. Oh, you fly a lot? Yeah, I fly all the time. Yeah, you used to be nervous? Yeah, I used to be nervous. My hands used to be sweaty, and I used to just put my hand. You ever put your hand by the ear vent because it gets sweaty because you get nervous? That was me when I started to fly. I learned actually how to get a little bit less nervous when I fly. One of the tricks that I would do is as I would take off, I would video what was happening outside and sort of like live through the camera. So it's like not reality. Like I'm like looking at the camera instead of looking, and then trying to like distract myself. So anyway,
did you fly again right away the next?
Yeah. No, I fly almost every week. So like
no, did you right after that you were like, that's fine.
On the horse.
Wow.
So I'm talking to this guy and I'm saying like, I used to be nervous, now I'm better, and so on. And suddenly we hear, ladies and gentlemen, we're before we knew it, all they said was head between your knees, bend down, head between your knees. Like they just kept saying it over and over again. Anyways, finally when we landed, I looked at the guy. I'm like, by the way, thanks for being next to me. And what do you do for a living? Like, who are you? So he says, I'm the guy that waits for the patent to run out, and I manufacture drugs that mimic any patent that's out there in the industry. And he taught me the idea of patents and manufacturers who spend years on R&D,
Mm-hmm.
right, and look at different products and say, okay, they come out with a certain type of product, they have a certain amount of years. Nobody can compete with them. I don't know if you
Yeah,
guys know.
Teva, they're
Steph,
based
maybe
at
you can look it up. How many years does a manufacturer have the rights to their drug? Let's just say. What would you say, Teva? What?
Teva is a big pharmaceutical generic brand company.
Yeah.
They're based out of Israel.
Yeah.
And they're all they do is produce generic drugs when
Right.
they think.
And they have to wait.
Just wait till Ozempic runs out. You know, the patent on that. You know, forget it. You know.
Exactly. By the way, so KCI, when they first got started, they had a patent on their filter,
Correct.
which is why they were able to rent it for whatever price
But
they wanted.
they lost the lawsuit.
Yeah,
for
no,
that.
they ran out and
They
so
ran
on. So I'm
out
saying
also, yeah.
knowledge is we're talking about knowledge and education. When you want to get involved in a product, knowing that there's
Absolutely.
certain times. That being said, though, when a manufacturer puts it in the R&D for their patent and it runs out, sometimes you're able to see that, you know, you take a Klonopin. I've taken a Klonopin before, and the brand differences between one Klonopin and another is completely different.
Right.
And it's just interesting that a generic versus a non-generic, and that's how I used to get through flights, by just taking
Really?
Klonopin. It's been a while, but yeah. So Steph,
20 years.
20 years.
That's what it says right here.
Wow. No, that's a patent. That's not a medical. That's not a. I'm talking about a.
Pharmaceutical patent.
Yeah. Wow. A
Interesting.
drug. Talking about a drug. I think it's. I think it's less. I think it's 3 to 5 years. But yes, a pharmaceutical patent can be 20 years, et cetera. So those are things that happen as well. But pretty crazy. You mentioned earlier about, you know, a guy coming to you on LinkedIn and being out there. You know, I just want to mention real quick that the idea of having you on our podcast is amazing. You're a friend.
Thank you.
You've been at so many conferences and trade shows that we've been
One
to.
second, let's just rewind. 7 years.
7 years. Okay.
7
Okay.
years. So that's the answer. Right?
Yeah.
Ushi and I were playing ring toss
Okay.
on your wine bottle at the trade show a few months ago. So you always have great gimmick you come up with at trade shows. But LinkedIn, I think, is one of your specialties, and something that I'd like to do is start inviting LinkedIn people into the podcast, like people that are in this world. So thank you very much for breaking that wide open for us.
I'm happy to be here.
First, I'm going to call you.
How many
LinkedIn
followers do you have?
celebrity.
I don't go
On
and
LinkedIn.
click through it to add people. So when people, let's say, reach out to me, I'll add them.
You
So
never checked how many followers you have?
I know. I do. I have
No,
like
no, he's saying
five
he
and a half.
doesn't
I have like
outreach.
I don't. There are people that just try to outreach and get
Yeah.
thousands. And
You're saying
stuff.
you want quality versus
I want
quantity.
quality, so I have around 6,000 things, but I think the reach is pretty far because the way LinkedIn works is, I mean, the algorithm keeps changing, but I can't even keep track.
I've seen your posts. For your 6,000 connections, you have a lot more engagement than people with 30,000 connections.
Because when I started, I actually started doing sales tips, like videos of sales tips, and a 2-minute video when video was just starting out on LinkedIn. And I just wrote down, I was on a flight once, I wrote down 20 different topics of sales tips. And then for some reason when COVID hit, I just stopped doing it because I don't know anybody was selling them. You know, I actually pivoted into that PPE world pretty quickly, you know, because we manufacture our products in China. We're one of the first people to get stuff on there. And then during COVID, no one wants to talk about what you're talking about in a meeting, or when you go into a meeting, how to give a handshake, how to make good eye contact with somebody. No one wants to hear about that. So kind of that stopped. Today, Yitz Henkin, you know, who I think should be on this podcast. He's up to sales pro tip number 49, and he does these quick videos of sales tips to people, which I think are extremely valuable. So
I have to thank you, Aaron, because before this podcast, I tried probably 3 different things to get out there from a promotional marketing branding perspective. One of them was my LinkedIn Lives, and we did one. You know, I just, first of all, thank you for, you know, jumping at it and being there for me when we first started getting out there. Give us your top sales tip. What would it be? If you've done it and
is to listen and understand and take notes. You know, Manny Raposo. Remember that post you did on Manny Raposo that went viral? Literally, he didn't even know. He hasn't logged into LinkedIn in 10 years, right? When he's at a meeting, and I watched him, I don't know, 2018 at the Nick when I was just starting, and I'm sitting there, and I met him, you know, right when I started, and he's sitting there with a notepad, and he's just listening, and he's writing, he's taking information, and he's just like letting the person talk. And I think when you go into a sales meeting, and I like to talk, I have to literally bite my tongue half the time. And the more you listen and more understand that, they're gonna do that. And it goes for like an interview. When you go on an interview, right? Ask them questions and then let the other guy talk. You know, those types of things in sales, people feel good about letting them talk about their business, their nursing homes, their nurses. And that's, I think, the number one tip that no one realizes.
I like that.
I think people realize it. I just think it's hard to execute.
And
It's very hard to do. Everybody always has something to say. They want their voice to be heard.
My tongue hurts right now. I mean, I
Yeah.
have to listen to that.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. So
yeah.
it's true.
it's an art form.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
something that you have to master. It's something that you have to work through to prevent yourself
Right.
from talking too much. And listen, but I agree with you. I think listening is a key element to capturing the audience and, to make them feel like you care about them. You're not just trying to sell them something, but you're trying to, you're trying to solve a solution,
Right.
a problem with the solution. I think that, listening
But
is
if you
very
have the
important.
combination of someone who likes to talk like me and everyone in this podcast, and they see that you actually could listen, you're a winner.
Yeah.
It's like you're batting 1,000 because you have both skills, and they see that you're actually paying attention.
I'll take that as a compliment.
I'm telling you, that's something that's huge.
On LinkedIn, one of the things you did is you started this hotel reviews, which I love. And for the record, I'm going to say it here. We did an office review for the first time here
Yes.
in Prime Source on Ushi's office. We're going to post it. And I'm telling you, that's going to go viral for you.
I'm you know what? I think next time I go to someone's office, I don't care who it is, I'll be like, hey, administrator, move over. Like, let's do a review here and
Yeah,
stuff.
let's do an office review. So how did
And
that
some
happen?
people have really cool offices.
Yeah.
There are a
I
lot
think-
of people that have these crazy
I'll
offices.
tell you though, Oshi and I both know this. We have a friend, a client, who's a big nursing home operator who has everything together. He has all his, together. Like he's very systematic. Every Tuesday he does his payroll, and every Wednesday he does this and that. You go to his office, he's got mountains of papers everywhere. You can't even see him. You have to go like this in order to see the guy because he has
Yeah.
so many pieces of paper on his desk.
It looks like a landfill.
Really?
Yeah. And
I think,
Doing office reviews is a good one.
but I think people, they say you can judge someone's office, their personality by their office, like a
course.
house. But I think there are people that, they know where everything is, even though things
Sure,
are,
it's a systematic, organized chaos.
Yeah, organized chaos.
So how did that thing start with the hotel review? What is that all about?
Okay, so
did Dave Portnoy have anything to do with it by any chance?
no, but this is just
Was he your,
No,
was he
I
your
mean,
oh yeah, of
inspiration?
course. The pizza review thing is good.
Okay, I mean,
now there's another thing that I don't have Instagram, but my wife told me that there is a lady in Manhattan that she reviews bathrooms in Manhattan. It's called Gotta Go apparently, and she'll tell you where the best bathrooms are in Manhattan, whether it's the third floor in Saks Fifth Avenue or in Restoration Hardware in the meatpacking district. Great bathroom there. By the way. I just want to let you know.
Anybody can walk in.
Anyone can walk in there.
I
I'm
love
telling you.
this. I'm gonna go test this out.
You should test it out. It's literally
Yeah.
a beautiful bathroom, like tile to the ceiling. It's a furniture store.
Loud music playing.
No, it's just like peaceful and everything's good. Good toilet paper. Everything's good.
Okay, I was referencing a restaurant that I went to where the loud music was playing, and I was thankful because you want sometimes the music to be louder than the person.
No, but the bathrooms are like kind of no.
If you know what I mean.
No, the bathroom is not like a stall. It's a room.
Can you explain to me? This is, by the way, a phenomenon that I've
Yeah.
seen. It's universal. I still till to today. I'm 38 years old, and I don't understand it. Why, when a public store makes a restroom, do they have the stalls where it starts 3 feet from the floor, it ends like 6 feet? It's like and like why are we all under the same stratosphere? Doing business, right next to the other person. What is so hard to just make the wall go all the way up? Why can't we give a little privacy?
I asked
What
this-
happened to giving a
I
little
asked this
privacy?
question, but I have the
What's
answer.
the benefit of it?
And then what about urinals without walls? Like, come on.
They have walls, but again,
Not
very
always.
flimsy walls.
Right.
It's like barely there almost. What's the point?
I don't know. There's a shul
It's
that
not,
was
it
just
can't even be that much more expensive
No,
to do it right and to do it all the way.
I was just as shocked as you, and I met a guy that actually sells partitions of bathrooms, and I asked him this question around 10 years ago, and he said to me, "It's fire safety."
Fire safety?
Fire safety. Apparently, if something goes wrong and you're locked in, you can get out from underneath. You can crawl in. You can get the person out. And I'm
What
like, okay,
any
fire
room in the building is closed
Yeah,
and
it-
closed.
it
This
doesn't-
is the one area when
I
you're
don't
doing your
know.
business
Steph,
that worried about a fire.
ChatGPT, this please. Why in the world are the
Yeah, I need to hear
not
this.
all the way down?
Yeah.
Like, why do I need to see the guy's feet right next to me? Why do I also need to hear him breathing like he was right next to me?
and then rolling the toilet paper, trying to
I
get
hear
good
everything.
grip on
I
the
hear
toilet
everything.
paper.
It's like we're in this together.
Yeah.
Like what's up with that?
I agree with you. I mean, there are places in Borough Park that have urinals that are way too close to one another. Trust me, I've been there. And I am telling you, these are issues.
It's a threefold answer. I believe it has to do with cost, has to do with emergencies. Let's say.
Okay, there you go.
And for cleaning purposes, so you can actually don't have to
Cleaning.
open the
Yes, that's
stall
another
doors,
thing.
and they can just
and just hose down the place.
It's terrible, by the way.
Exactly.
It's terrible.
It sounds like it's
Yeah.
everybody else's convenience but mine. That's what it sounds like. But the person that's actually going to be sitting in there, it's just uncomfortable. It's like one of those things. Like
I'm
you
with
want
you
your
on
little
that.
space. You know, like dogs that go to like a corner. So a cat, they go to the corner. Like, why do we have to be so exposed and vulnerable when we're doing that? It's just very annoying.
I completely agree, and I think, in the meatpacking district over there by the Restoration Hardware, that bathroom is great, the best one in Manhattan. And I happen
almost excited to
I happen
go
to
there.
like the meatpacking district in general.
Yeah.
Even though I live in Cleveland, so it's just but that bathroom is good. So
You ever hear the Cleveland song?
Yeah.
The famous Cleveland
Yeah.
song? Their tagline is, "At least we're not Detroit."
but you know what? Something living out of
You know
town.
what I'm talking about,
Yes,
though?
absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what it is.
Of course, I know what you're talking about, but he's getting insulted.
But one thing I learned by living out in Cleveland, and I moved there 8 years ago, is that living out of town has advantages, but I will never talk bad about another out of town community. When someone says, "Oh, at least we're not Detroit or Baltimore's this and that," you can make fun of any community, but one thing I learned is I don't make fun of, because there's plenty to make fun of Cleveland. So,
Just for the record, the song is very funny.
oh, it's hilarious.
And it's not, so
but
much
personally.
about making fun of another town. It's making fun of Cleveland.
Yeah.
Specifically,
Now,
Oh, for
Cleveland.
sure.
We grew up in New
We
York.
carved you out,
Right.
and we literally
Yeah.
just
We
picked. We
grew
targeted
up in
you.
New York knowing two things. Number one is Cleveland rocks, but we're
Yeah.
still trying to figure out why.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing is that if you want a place that you can afford to live, and I tell this to people all the time, move to Cleveland. So I am curious about your journey of.
We'll put the
living
hotels,
there.
in the first,
Yeah,
in a second.
yeah. Our ADD is kicking in.
That's just, listen, what happened is that I was flying, when I joined the family business, I would start going to facilities out on Long Island. And for some reason, every time I would go there, like, yeah, we know about you. We'll get in touch. And I went on a map and I said, there are 950 nursing homes in the state of Ohio and nobody is doing what I do. And I can fly in and out the same day. Not a big deal. I was living in Brooklyn, flew in and out. And then it turned to 2 days. I'd fly into Columbus, drive up to Cleveland for another meeting. And then they used to have this shuttle flight that would fly, for $300. You'd fly from Cleveland to Cincinnati, and it would fly out that night to back home. And I was doing this over and over again. And we're picking up a lot of accounts out there. And it wasn't just Cleveland. It was, Indianapolis. Nobody was doing this in the Midwest. So I had to fire my apartment in Brooklyn. And after living with my in-laws for a few months, the rent was crazy, and I said to my wife, like, get free tuition, or half tuition. You get a tuition voucher living in Cleveland. You get a house for $300,000 back then, and let's give it a shot. And I'm there 8 years, so I'm not gonna complain about it. And it's the only from community that you could buy a house, a 3-bedroom, 1.5-bedroom house, still for $400,000, and still drive 7.5 hours from Cleveland to Lakewood or to Muncie. Everywhere else, and you have 3 schools and supermarkets there. It's not perfect. You don't have everything, but at the same time, it's a great Jewish community. I'm not advocating for Cleveland.
And growing.
And growing. And I don't tell people to move to Cleveland. I don't go. There are people that actually host people for Shabbos almost every week that are looking into living there. I don't push it. I had my growing pains. It wasn't easy in the beginning. It wasn't easy for my family. I don't push it, but hey, I'm happy, and it makes sense.
I'm happy for you, to be honest.
Thank you.
I really am. I met a couple that has 2 young kids, and they are currently on a journey of figuring out where to live in the United States. And they spent already a year researching this and spending Shabbos in Texas, Shabbos in Tennessee, Shabbos in Ohio. And they keep going. They're learning about the different towns and what the difference is between, the schools and the restaurants and how they want to raise their kids. And that's always a big one. Like, how do you want to raise
So it sounds like they're going to spend their whole lives trying to figure out where they live. And then at a certain point, they're going to realize, wait a second, we actually need a 55 and older apartment right now.
late.
Yeah.
Because it's
You
too
have
late.
them on the podcast.
Tell them not to overthink it. Tell them to just
No, I don't agree with
do
you.
a little
They should
research.
overthink it. I think they're doing the world a favor. I don't agree with you.
You should get them on the podcast, and they
is
can
a
kind of
great
go
thing.
through the.
Young couples who are getting. You want to buy a house in Muncie today? It's impossible. The Hasidim come, they raise up the prices, and you're done. I mean, you know what's going on in Muncie right now with the battle between the communities in Muncie and Skver.
Yeah, I saw a petition. There's something coming.
Understand what's going on with the real estate market and how they're overpaying for houses to control the market. There's nowhere to live anymore. And
I know.
You're paying the private taxes and you're paying the.
I
public.
had I liked that episode with the controller.
Yeah.
He was great.
Town supervisor.
Town
Michael Scott,
supervisor. Yeah, you guys look like you pay a lot of taxes.
We
You
do pay.
think?
Yeah.
How much is your taxes?
Property tax. It's going to be like $15,000 on my house.
No, that's not.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
not
you have,
small.
you have a
Not
bigger
that
house though now. So
Yeah,
that's
I'm
a
moving
different
in a
story.
week, yeah.
But a typical $300,000-$400,000 house is
$8, $9.
$9,000.
Yeah.
Okay, we're
So
done.
there's actually like a tax
More than-
abatement now in my area. They want people to knock down their houses and build it. They're giving like a 15-year tax abatement. So the houses that are like run down that no one want to take now, everyone's like grabbing and stuff.
Wow.
But one thing I did when it comes to raising my kids out of town, I did raise them to be Yankees fans. You know.
Nice.
Yes.
Good for
very
you.
important.
Smart.
Yankees come to town.
You did
We used to
yourself
go
a
to the
favor. You did
games and
them a
stuff.
big favor.
Yes.
Yeah. Be
You
part
know,
of a winning franchise. Why wouldn't
100%.
you want to?
You know,
if you have the ability to
It's
connect in
exciting
some
when
way.
they come to Cleveland to go to a game or something like that. You
Especially
know?
when the Yankees come to town, they can
Yes.
go for cheap. They can go sit in the stadium and watch
Yeah,
the game.
I remember I sat.
Actually, Cleveland, the Indians are not that bad.
The Indians is a
the
great
Guardians,
sports.
The Guardians.
Yeah,
Sorry.
The Guardians, they're great. It's a great sports town. There's nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
The Browns fans, and there's a respect. But the funny thing is that the Indian fans like, oh, I hate the Yankees. We're like, Yankee fans, we don't even know who you are.
Right,
Like,
exactly. We're not
Boston
even-
and
we're not
Houston.
even
Like,
good
it's
with you.
not right. We don't even know. Like, it's okay, But it's but the Yankees. I was living out there. The Yankees travel well. They come to when the Yankees come to town.
Everywhere. across-
Progressive Field is full. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, every stadium across the country. When the Yankees come to town, they fill up.
They fill up.
They fill up the seats. People, they're a main attraction.
And then when they're outside the hotels, because I have a friend who went and went down to the downtown hotel where the Yankees are. They're lining the streets there with people coming to get autographs and stuff.
Hotel reviews.
Yeah, back to hotel reviews. I'm a believer that LinkedIn, you're not going to get business from LinkedIn unless you're an interior designer or you're web designer that you can really showcase your work or your marketing work. Well, LinkedIn is really kind of promoting yourself so that when you meet someone at a conference or you meet someone in a meeting, they know who you are and they know your personality and they want to determine that this is somebody that they want to do business with. You could sit there and send messages to people. I do wound vax, this, that, and the other. Can we get a meeting? But the goal is kind of self-branding, I think is the right word, and people know who you are. Getting to the hotel reviews, I wasn't doing these sales tips for a while. I was at Ohio Healthcare's. They do 2 smaller conferences a year. It was the fall conference, and it's a lot of times in downtown Columbus. But this time they did it in Westerville, in the middle of nowhere, okay, like a suburb of Columbus. And it was in this Renaissance hotel, and it was brand new. It was good. And I come down the next day, and there were a few vendors there, not as many vendors as like the big show. And I'm talking to her, and she says, this hotel, at the end of the day, it was a good hotel. It's an 8.1, She's like, what do you mean? Like the pizza review? I'm like, yeah, it was a good review. She's like, you should go do a review, And then she even named it. She said, like, you should call it One Night instead of One Bite, And I went upstairs. I quickly cleaned up, made my bed and everything, and I reviewed the room, and that was my first review. And everyone said it's genius, to the point that when I go to a conference, everyone's asking me, so new, which hotel? How's your hotel? Well, what's the review? Now, I had to go meet with somebody like in the Midwest, like in Kansas or something. And he was very dry on the phone the whole time setting up the meeting. And he says, so you're going to get good hotel review, at this thing? And I never spoke to him before. And then you hear some lady in the back, he's the guy, he's coming to so it definitely does.
The power of social media.
The power of people knowing
connects
who you
us
are.
all, no matter where we are in the world.
And it's not just that. I think we say this a lot, is we encourage all of our people to build their own brand. And, if you're building your own brand, that people learn to trust you and deal with you and want to be around your energy, then it's good for you and it's good for us. So
I want to review booths. Like before, before a trade show, there's like an extra hour before the show is open. Only the vendors are allowed. Like I want to walk down like one aisle of
I'll do that with you. I
and
like
say,
that idea.
This
I don't know.
is
The booths are all pretty much the same.
No,
though.
because you look for the tchotchkes.
Look for the
you want to
tchotchkes.
see who has those cool
like
new
their promotional
games.
items.
You know what I
who
gave
has-
out last year at OHCA? I gave out dude wipes.
Dude, wait.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It was great. I found them on Amazon for like $2 a piece once. I'm telling you, my office was loaded with boxes of this.
Yeah.
It's very hard to,
When
to
I
schlep those
actually
stuff.
remember seeing the Dude Wipes episode on Shark Tank
Yeah.
while it happened, when it was right when they were coming for the first time. I watched the episode live. I was
Yeah.
watching it live. I remember watching it, and I thought to myself at the time, this is a crazy idea. They just took baby wipes and basically renamed it to Dude Wipes. And, it was all about the branding and their presentation and their story. They had a story as well. And the Sharks were into it, and I was very surprised. And they got a deal, and they went on to be, I think, the top 5 most successful companies on Shark Tank. They did like $400-500 million in sales, maybe even more. Maybe they even hit the $1 billion mark already.
Steph,
They
let's
maybe
go.
even hit
Yeah.
the billion.
Who are the
billion mark.
top? I know that the Scrub Daddy.
Scrub
is,
Daddy.
That was up there. Scrub
definitely
Daddy's up
probably in the
there.
top 5.
Yeah.
I love this.
Bombas, the sock company. Yeah, they
I don't
became.
remember that.
Yeah, Bombas, Scrub
Daddy's
Daddy's
number
number
two?
2. Is number 2. Number 3 is okay. We don't need all the detail. Squatty Potty.
I
Yeah.
don't remember that either.
Kevin O'Leary always said something about the cats. You know, there was
The
number,
DNA.
The DNA thing.
Yes.
But that's
Yes.
it.
Also, he made a lot of money.
Yeah,
on
he
that.
made a lot of money off
I
that.
have to just say this. Barbara gets me very nervous.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
Just Tipsy Elves sales. Do not Tipsy Elves. Do
Just
Dude
ask them
Wipes.
about Dude
Yeah,
Wipes.
just ask them about Dude Wipes.
Yeah. How many? What's the revenue for Dude Wipes?
You guys do training on GPT at all?
We use ChatGPT a lot. We basically, around a year ago, our COO, David Gnu, he announced to the entire
Here
company.
today?
Yeah, he announced
Okay.
to the entire company, congratulations. we
200,
just got you all a
200 million
personal
revenue.
assistant
Okay.
named ChatGPT, and he encouraged all of us to use it, and we all here use it every single day.
That's good.
And that's why I started the episode with this,
Yeah.
because I'm a big fan. I think that people should just talk to it more.
I agree. It can definitely. You have to be very careful. Like I'm doing follow-ups from the LTC 100 conference, and you know, you draft together a crafty email. You could actually take like a picture of the guys from the cocktail book, put it into ChatGPT, and say, do a deep dive into this company and this person, just like what you did to me, and actually give me an email that's geared towards him. But you have to be very careful because you don't want that person reading the email saying, you know, this guy got it right off ChatGPT.
Right.
Right.
You know, you have to be like kind of find that balance.
You look like a stalker or something.
Stalker
you
and
know.
stuff. You want to know that you did some.
You have to always end, and don't make this look like ChatGPT.
Yeah, yeah. Make it a
You
little.
know
more.
that ChatGPT has that very cool feature that can do a deep dive on people.
That's what I'm saying.
It
That-
takes 5 minutes. Like literally, it can take, I don't know about 5 minutes. It could take sometimes a few
I think you got to pay a lot of money for that.
Yeah,
That one. But they the cocktail book is from the show is in PDF, so you just kind of like cut it out and just drop it as a picture into it, and you know you can craft an email to it. So I've been doing that.
Yeah.
So any of the emails that are going in, if they're
So,
they are
you know,
from
I'm
ChatGPT.
curious. You know, we have this. Our podcast in general has been about growth, and you know, you're a real important listener to us.
I love your podcast. I think it's a perfect balance between, let's say, you have Nachi Gordon's podcast and a lot of the other good ones, but sometimes you just need to like sit back and you can learn something from this podcast and you want to laugh a little bit. I think it's like a good balance. And you keep it, mature and it's,
You know, I
it's good.
appreciate that. I think that the quality of our listeners is really good because we're hitting a demographic that we want. You're literally in that demographic.
I love it.
So we appreciate it. Do you have any feedback for us?
Well, I think the lightning round is, it was a little bit too like you're caught off guard. Like
Please
sometimes-
don't say that because she hated it and we shut it down and you're just giving him more ammo against me.
But I think what you're doing is great. Like I think the way it's evolved over the last few months is getting better and better. You know, I don't think there's anything you should change.
I appreciate that. So one of the things we added is because we're very growth oriented and, we like to get people on who have a story to tell, where they're from, what they're currently doing, what the future is. One of the questions we like to ask our guests now is if you had a message for the world and you can, put out a megaphone that everyone listens to you, what would that message be? Have you thought about that?
Absolutely. I think
curious
so.
what your message would be.
I think, people throw around the terminology, he's a nice guy too much. Everyone says, oh, he's a nice guy. A nice guy means somebody who is nice to everyone, no matter who they are, not just their friends, right? People should be nice to everyone, whether it's a collector coming to your door, whether it's somebody in your community who's not super cool or you're not going to get anything out of them, is try to be nicer to people, not just the people that you like, whether it's your employees, and it's not somebody you want to do business with, but just in general, be a nice person to everybody else, and give everyone the time of day. People say, oh, out of town people are nicer, they have better manners. I don't know if it's true. Right, and then there are people in the New York metropolitan area that they're just, they're from New York, they're not nice. Not true, not all of them are nice, but I'm saying is try to be nice to everyone.
You know what this is reminding me of? This is such like very, very profound what you're saying. And it sounds simple. Sounds like be nice to everyone. Very
Great message. Love
right?
it.
Very cliche, very cheesy,
No,
right? But it goes. It's very deep what you're saying if you really unpack it. And I heard a sermon this week from my rabbi.
Unpack his message.
And he really triggered for me what he was saying. And I think that, this really resonates with me. What he said was that is David HaMelech, King David, who wrote the Psalms, beautiful praise to God, Hashem. And he really did an amazing job, and like it's very deep, the words, and a lot of it is rhymes, and it's like a song almost, like a song. And no one has ever really matched like that writing. No one's ever matched it. There was, however, a king, Nebuchadnezzar, who was I think from a Persian king, I believe. I could be wrong, but very, very big king. He ruled like half the world at some point, and he stumbled across a scenario where he realized that there was a God and he was very powerful, and he was so amazed by it that he started praising him. And there's a Gemara about this apparently. And what happened was the angels in the heavens were like, what is going on over here? This guy is praising God, and it's so beautiful, and he's going to outdo David HaMelech's psalms, the Tehillim. He's going to outdo it. So they quickly came down and they smacked him on the mouth. So they injured him. So this way, he wouldn't be able to really continue. But more importantly, not that he wouldn't really be able to continue, is that first, we want to see you in pain. We want to see you suffer. Now, let me see how you're singing the praises. Now, let me see when times are tough, when it's very difficult to do, are you overcoming those challenges and still finding the good and still finding the positivity? That's the challenge. King David went through a lot of trials and tribulations in his life. He had tremendous amount of difficulty. He had so many things that could have brought him down to give up, but he never did. And not only did he not give up, he wrote these beautiful songs. So that's what the challenge was with him. That's what they did.
Was that this past weekend?
This past week.
Because I also learned about King David this past weekend.
Did you?
Yeah.
But do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
with what he's
awesome.
saying?
Yes,
I mean, what he's saying is
100%.
it's
Yeah.
being nice to your friends and to the people in your inner circle, and that doesn't make you a nice guy.
Right.
And that's a lot of people are very nice to the people they care about.
Right.
The question is, what do you do to the guy that's annoying you? What do you do to the guy who is not really bringing much value to the table?
Correct.
And are you treating him as an equal, or are you dismissing him? Or are you, right? That is when you really need to step up and be that nice person.
And being in this industry, you see who's the nice people.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
There are so many people, operators, that they're, in a much bigger position than we are. They're very successful. They don't need us. And they still treat people with the utmost respect, with a lot of dignity, and they're receptive, they're welcoming to anybody that sits down with them, and you don't feel the aura of, I'm not good enough to be in his presence. Like, he doesn't make you feel that way. Then there are others that are very standoffish, that are they're not even that successful, but they just have this ego, and they have this ears about them that it's a big turnoff, and you see the differences. There are people on both sides.
Shows,
Yeah.
But it's
At
funny
shows
when you were at the
especially.
ECAP conference and you're doing your podcast and you're talking about how to approach certain people, and and you kept mentioning something about, oh, they're too busy. They're very busy people. If you're at ECAP, you're not that busy, really. Like, and you have your inner circle. You're there to have fun and literally be in day camp for 3 days. So if you're gonna go to a vendor and really kind of say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm busy. Back to back. The word back to back meetings, baloney. You just don't want to talk to the person.
Right.
They're actually paying for you to be here.
Right.
And that's kind of, I'm not saying the ECAP people are wonderful people and they put together a fantastic thing, but some of the people, when they're at the ECAP conference and they have their table at breakfast and they're like kind of have their posses around them, and we don't have to sit there and defend those people and say they're very busy people. You're at ECAP, you're there to actually meet with people. Like, you had that gentleman on, he had a beard, he took his kid to the private jets on the thing.
Oh, Chaim Ziegler.
And he said that he told his son, you're here to meet some potential vendors, and I wasn't at ECAP this year, but to hear that from someone saying, you're here to see people here, that's
Use
kind
the
of why
time
you're there.
wisely.
Time you're wisely.
Give people a
and
chance. You might
treat
learn
the people.
something.
You might learn something.
I
Go
will
talk
tell
to
you,
them.
by the way, specifically at ECAP, I just want to defend them a little bit.
Well, I'm not saying bad. The people at ECAP are wonderful.
No, I'm not saying ECAP. I'm saying the people, the operators. It happens to be when you're going to ECAP, your mindset is, I want to do deals. I want to meet bankers. I want to meet the insurance. I want to really find other nursing homes that I could do deals with other operators. So there's a lot of top of mind, mega deals going on in people's minds.
Right.
That being said, right, just want to add a little flavor and edit a little bit of what you said. You have to remember that us vendors are paying for your meaning during the day, okay, you're busy, you have those meetings, but when you're at breakfast and you're at a table or you're at dinner or you're quiet and you're walking, don't turn your back to people.
Right. Don't pull your phone out as the guy's walking out.
Don't say I have back to back. Say I have back to back, but of course I'll make time for you, Mr. or Miss or Mrs. Vendor that paid so much to be here, who is giving me my grandiose dinner and my beautiful, spa in the night and yoga in the morning. That's the idea that I think is the message. And I I got to tell you, I'm a big Family Guy fan, and they have this thing called, what grinds my gears? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So what really grinds my gears is when people say, no, but deep down he's a nice guy. I really can't stand that. I just can't. I don't want to hear that deep down he's a nice guy. And I'm sure there's jokes that people can say
for
about
sure.
deep down.
He
but-
only acts like an a-hole, but
Right.
deep down he's a nice.
No,
Whoa.
he needs therapy.
Yeah.
He needs to
Yeah.
go to help. He can't.
So when people say he's a great guy, I go like, yeah, he's all right,
Right.
And and the person sits back sometimes, and I'm not trying to say lashon hara or anything. I'm like, yeah, he's okay, And they kind of sometimes sit back and they be like, you know what, you're right. He's all right, because like the terminology, he's a great guy, a nice guy, I think is thrown around way too much.
The reason why it hurts is because then the guy thinks he's actually a nice guy. So somebody needs to tell him, hey, you got to stop pushing people around and being negative and always saying that you have back-to-backs. Like
Right.
That's the
What-
idea.
what's your take?
I don't think, for me at least, this might be a little controversial, and maybe there are very few people out there who will agree with me, but I think most people will not. It's unpopular.
I can't.
I don't aim to be a nice guy.
Okay.
I'm not.
Oshi, I was literally about to say, Oshi, by the way, you were such a nice guy.
Right.
Stefan's getting
You're
it.
nice to me. That's
You
what-
gave him a mic and he's going all
it.
out.
He had an upgraded mic,
He's
too.
not
I wish
even.
they could
He's
see
not
it.
even pacing himself. He's just coming out guns blazing with his biggest weapons right away.
Right.
So I don't really like. My notoriety, I don't care for it to be.
Right.
Other people saying, oh, that guy Oshi, what a nice guy. Like, I'm not aiming for that. I don't know if I care for that.
Right.
I don't want people to say I'm a terrible person. All that. That's fine.
Right.
But I'm a nice guy. It could be a lot of other attributes as well that could define you. That is sort of your niche. I think being a nice guy should be reserved for people who there's a guy I remember growing up, and he's a nice guy. He was always doing stuff in the shul. Like, he was the guy after kiddush cleaning up. And,
Yeah.
like if you had a problem, he would run over. He's the first one to assist you. He's a nice guy. He's a really nice guy. He's pleasant. He just is around. He wants everybody around him to be happy.
Right.
Right. It's just thrown around so loosely. I'm not a nice guy. Michael, you're a nice guy. You're a nice guy, Michael, because you really do a lot for the community. And I don't have the patience that you have. I do not. You have so many people that line up to tell you this and tell you that. I'm done with it. I'm bored. I need to go. So yeah, but most people are not nice people. Most people are
I
not
agree.
nice people. And the few that are, it's a really big, you're diminishing the word when you just throw it around loosely and saying, oh, he's a nice guy. No, they're not.
All right, can't
You
wait
want
to say
let's talk about your brother for a second, because I knew him for many years before he was one of the guests on here. David Greenfield. You and him, very different personalities,
Yes,
but deep down, you guys actually have like a lot of similarities and
I
stuff.
thought you were going to say deep down he's a nice guy.
Yeah, but on that nice guy thing. But let me tell you something about him. When I met him for the first time, I know him for over 10 years. And I'll get into this thing, is that he came to shul with my friend Manis Berkovici, who's a good friend of his, in shul in the summer. And most people went upstate, but there was like a core group of guys in the shul in Brooklyn that came by. And he comes in there. My friend said, this guy, Michael Greenfield's, David Greenfield's here. He's a politician. He's a councilman. He's this guy. And he comes over to me and he says, what's your name? I said, my name is Aaron Lichtenstein. And then he asked me, like, so what do you do? So I said, I work at Ernst & Young. I said, what do you do? And he was like, excuse me, like, what do you mean, what do we do? I'm David Greenfield. I'm like the councilman. My picture's in the TED every week. Like I'm the guy and stuff. And then our relationship kind of, he threw him off a little bit, like throwing someone off. On that note, I'll give you guys a tip here, and for my listeners, and it's interesting. Not when you're at a conference, when you meet somebody for the first time, right? If you're at a healthcare conference, you're there to know what they do for a living or whatever it is. Ask them their name, where they're from. Try to avoid asking them what they do for a living. Try to get to know the guy's personality without asking them. So, what do you do? Right? Why do you have to go ahead and touch somebody up? Sum them up based on what they do for a living.
Right.
And it's something that a different friend of mine taught me, is that you can actually get to know somebody without running to know, I work in the health. Oh yeah, So I never ask people what they do. When I meet them. And if you ever try that with, meeting new people, it's fascinating. Sometimes people are actually edging to tell you what they do, and you just kind of not even ask them.
When you ask someone, what do you do?
When you're at a work event, you're at ECAP or Ohio Healthcare, LTC 100 or whatever it is, you're there to make money. You got to know what they do. That's something else, you know. But actually, it's,
I want to tie it to it.
It's almost like a code for, so how can you serve me? How can you help me? You say, what do you do? Let me see. Is there a way that we could,
How can you interest me in this conversation?
Right.
I want to tie the two of your points together, and we're going to have to wrap.
Sure.
Ushi, you may not be a nice guy, right? But at the end of the day, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about and you're a nice guy, by the way. But deep down,
I do nice things.
No.
I do some nice things. It doesn't make me a nice guy.
The point of this conversation, and the reason why I think it went a little left field, is because it's not about being a nice guy. Yes, the guy in shul who puts the svarim away is a nice guy. We're not talking about that. This is the hottest topic for me, by the way. Psychological evaluation of people. I love it. I do this all day long. Speak to people, meet people, evaluate them. I don't read books. I read people. That's literally what I do all day.
I don't either read.
So thank you for that. What I think the message here, and I think that what we're trying to talk about, and I think that what you should, I hope, accept is the normalcy for everyone, is to be nice to strangers, to be nice to others. It's not about you being the nice guy. I don't care if you're a nice guy or not a nice guy. I care how you treat me when I meet you. That's what we're talking about.
I'll give you an example.
And going back to I'm sorry for 1 second, Aaron. Going back to what you said a minute ago, I literally spoke about this last night because, and this is a hot topic of mine also. How do you introduce a person? How do you say hello to somebody? Like, ask your friend, and I have a way, but I'd love to ask you this question. What do you say when you meet someone? How do you get to know them? You just started meeting them. What's your go-to question to engage in a conversation of getting to know them, other than what do you do? So please, I'd love to hear.
I don't know. For me, it works
think
naturally.
of it. You have to come up with a question that you ask somebody so that you can invite people.
Where you from?
Where you from?
How'd you get there?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Where you from?
How'd you get there?
Yeah.
That's great.
Where'd you grow
Now,
up?
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
That's
it makes a lot of sense what you're saying.
We're talking about just being nice to others.
I know, but that isn't the true definition of the phrase. He's a nice guy.
I'm not talking about that.
When he meets strangers,
I'm talking about
he gives them a little bit of
inclusiveness.
attention.
Yeah, that's it.
The word is about inclusive. You go sit down in shul in a kiddush, let's say, right? And you have your two friends, and I've over the podcast I learned about your shul. It sounds awesome, right? but what I'll tell you is that you have that one other guy who's trying to fit in,
Correct.
who you don't play baseball with, and he's not a Yankee fan. He's a Met fan, and he sits down and he tries to sit on the other side of you. You're not facing your two core friends that you just saw on Friday afternoon. You actually can gauge, hey, David, how are you today? How's your week? What's going on? Hey, what are you doing for, midwinter, or what's going on and stuff? Talk to that guy. He could be a janitor, head maintenance guy in yeshiva, but be nice to that person also, And when your friends see that, it'll rub off on them.
Aaron, what a message.
I think that's really important.
I really like that. I really like that. And I'll tell you.
My father's like that, and that's where I got it.
I got to tell you what I tell people when I first meet them, and you guys can use and adapt any one of these varieties of ways of communicating with people when you first meet with them is, hey, what's top of your mind? How's your day going? How was your week is actually what I always ask people.
That's fantastic.
That's the way I start with every conversation. How was your week?
Yeah.
And people look at me sometimes like, what? You don't know me. What do you mean you ask me? How was your week? What's top of your mind? I think that's a great way to start engaging in conversations with people you don't know. The idea of inclusiveness is an amazing message. Aaron, thank you so much for being here. Before we let you go, we can't let you go without asking you who your potential guest is that you would invite to sit in this chair.
I would love to see you tanking in the seat.
Do you know him?
I agree.
Yes.
Michael,
We all know him
very well.
Call him and ask him.
I've asked him a few times to come on.
No.
He said he
Call him
would,
and
but
ask.
he just never gave.
on the other.
All right, so you'll call him and ask him for us?
I will call him. I will ask him.
All right.
I think he's hilarious.
Let's
I think
get
he's
him on.
funny.
I agree.
And you know what? He speaks the truth.
Yes.
And
Let's get him on. Guys, thank you so
on.
much for listening, liking, subscribing, commenting, getting involved, growing with us, hearing us out, being part of our community, part of our lives. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Aaron, for being on our program.
Thank
Have
you.
a great week, everybody.
That's a wrap.
Take care.
That's a wrap.